Hello everybody, Richard Michael Owen here at Owen Automotive, and today we're going to geek out on horns, specifically the Lucas 1748s. We can see one here in the middle that needs a lot of restoration work. So this horn was pretty ubiquitous in the 1950s. It had a lot of applications. These things were on Jaguar XK140s and 150s, Austin Healey 100s, Rolls-Royce Wraiths, and there's even one mounted on the front of the Daimler Ferret Scout, believe it or not. So for our application, I have two that we're going to put together here. You can see the different horns, the high and the low frequency, and we'll put them together and describe the function and what all these parts do. But I wanted to talk about where this horn came from. We can see the predecessor here. It was a much larger horn, really heavy unit. And I guess then when the HF came out in the 50s, it was a much slimmer design. And it's kind of unique in how it has this tone disc. It's a magnesium tone disc. And you know, you see these kind of horns on a lot of early cars, MGTs and stuff. They're mounted right up front. And it was replaced by this successor, a much, much smaller, more compact design. This is kind of like an MGB-E type part. And this was non-serviceable. And that's a really important part I want to make, is that on this Lucas HF, there's actually a shop manual for them. There's a 6-page manual. It goes through how to adjust and deal with all the electronics inside. And I think that's really neat. It's kind of from an era where things were quality made and made to last, whereas in this generation, they were just replaced outright. Okay, now I want to talk about how these horns work, how they make their noise. And at the core of it are these steel diaphragms. There's a high note diaphragm and a low note diaphragm. The main difference, other than the color they were painted from the factory, is that the high note diaphragm has more curvature built into it. I don't know if it'll come through great on the camera here, but there's definitely a different radius on the high note diaphragm. Now the high note diaphragms have a suffix, they're 70 series, and the low notes all have a suffix of the 60 series. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two from the outside on the stamping of the model number there. So attached to these diaphragms is the armature. It's on the underside of the diaphragm. And then there's the actual coil and condenser unit built here into the base. And what happens is when this is energized, it draws that diaphragm down. Then it breaks a set of points here, right there. And that'll cause a continuous loop where it goes up, down, breaking these points. Now there is adjustment here. There's a screw and a spring that you can actuate from the back, and that'll adjust the gap, and that'll kind of adjust how nice the tone is. And that's how it works. Pretty simple device, really, but we have to make sure the contacts are clean, the gaps are correct. And actually in the shop manual, it talks about checking the amperage draw while the horn's on. So what we'll do is we'll put these things together and we'll test them on the battery. So I have everything I need here to assemble the high note horn. How do I know it's the high note horn? Well, I actually put a dot on it before I disassembled it. But I also know it's the high note horn because it has the black diaphragm. And the suffix on the model number here, if it'll pull a focus, it says 71E. So instead of using those paper gaskets like we saw before that held the moisture and really rotted away the diaphragm, I'm using a non-drying gasket sealant. It's kind of like a Hylamar-like product. And I like that because it can be easily taken apart and it makes the horn much more serviceable in the future. So the first thing I want to do is just put a dab of oil here on this screw thread. And that'll make sure that this will be adjustable in perpetuity. You don't want that to seize up. Just got that little dab on there. And now we can mate the diaphragm to the base. It has to be clocked correctly. I put an arrow here towards the top of the horn. And what that does is it makes sure this armature is just in the right location to strike down on those points. So if it's sitting down like this, that'll be good. It has free movement. Okay, got it on there right. And I got these cheese head screws to put in. And the two lower ones will be longer to hold the base in. Oh, it's already starting to look nice here. These ones should just go right through. No threads on the bottom ones because they have to accept the base on the back. We've got the magnesium tone disc. You just drop in the center here. It's a tight fit. It's gonna have to screw on just fine. I'm gonna be careful with it, don't wanna crack it. I'm gonna seat that all the way down. Now this is adjustable, but I'm leaving it the way the factory set it, so it should be just fine. Feels about right there. We got the acorn nut to finish. Okay, I'm gonna tighten down on all this and then we can work on putting the base on. Okay, I'm just about to install my base here. I found that these bases, I'll show you a picture of it, they were also painted this kind of goldy gray color. And they just use some thin spring steel here, very strong. I guess that just isolates the vibration. Now I was just able to look at the one that's not taken apart, and I can see it uses a very small, thin washer and lock washer. They're here all, the original hardware is all plated. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together with the original hardware. Now in between the spring steel, there's this washer. There we are. We'll put the correct high frequency tag on there. Okay, I firmly got the horns in the vise here with the original mounting bolts. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I geek out on that kind of stuff. So, here we go. Let's see the performance. Here's the low horn. It works. The high horn. Whew, those things are loud. And together, wow, that's really loud. What I'm going to do is put in my earplugs, and I'm going to play with the adjuster screw on the back side. We'll see if that makes any difference. There we are. So there's definitely a sweet spot on that adjustment of the gap. Okay, all done with these horns. They're ready to go on the car. And these are going on an XK150 that I'm fully restoring here on YouTube. You can follow my series in the coming months. I'll be installing these horns and everything else that makes up a complete car. This is just one very small part that I'm glad you guys could come along with me. I could share the details and share my process. And yeah, I guess about a couple months ago when I first started researching these and I was looking at the new old stock ones in the box, this is really what I envision, you know, really nice high quality metallic paint, cadmium finishes. It's these kind of details, these concourse Pebble Beach details that really get me going. I love it. And what did I learn? Well, you know, if these horns aren't working, the first thing you should do is really clean the contacts out. And when you do that and put it back together, likely the contact gap's going to be slightly different. So you're going to have to use that adjuster screw on the back to get them right in tune. Well, that does it for this video. As always, if you have any tips, tricks, comments, or trade secrets, I love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Well, that's it. Okay, see you later, everybody. Bye-bye.